Hi everyone, welcome to Robert Q's Hunger Spot, where you can like, comment, and subscribe. Today we're making stacked queso tacos. Yes, that sounds great and delicious. So I have all my ingredients in front of me today, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to make those tacos. So guess what? All you gotta do is follow Rari Q. Let's go. Okay, today, ladies and gentlemen, we have all our ingredients today for our tacos. We have our flour tortillas. We have our seasoning, which is salt, pepper, parsley mix. We have our lettuce, tomatoes, onions, jalapenos, ground beef, our hard taco shells, our shredded cheese, garlic, sour cream, our oil. We also have our queso cheese, our green onions for our garnish, and our salsa. Yes. Now, and we also have our water for when we're cooking our ground beef. So, let's get going. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we have our milk in our pot for our cheese, and we also have our bacon already laid out in our skillet. Let's go. Okay, the first thing, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing is we're cooking off our bacon. Yes, we have our bacon on medium heat. I'm going to cook this bacon off until it's nice and crispy. I'm going to let this bacon go for about 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. Once I take this bacon off, we're going to place it to the side, and then we're going to saute our onions. So, I'll be right back. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, our bacon is cooking up very nice. We're going to leave this in for a few more minutes until it gets a little more crispy, and then we're going to pull these off. See you in a few. Now that we have removed our bacon, it is nice and crispy. Look how good that looks. It looks so yummy, ready to eat. We're going to put this to the side, and this is going to be chopped up, and it's going to be on top of our tacos. Good. Okay, now that we have cooked our bacon, our nice crispy bacon, we're going to saute our onions. Now, I love onions. Onions and bacon is optional. You can just do ground beef if you like. But me, I like bacon and I love flavor, so I have to put me some onions. So, I'm going to show you how to saute some onions. So first, we're going to take some extra olive oil right here, extra virgin olive oil right here, and I'm going to show you that you don't need much. All you need to do is spread it around with just a half a teaspoon or tablespoon of olive oil. Okay? Now, we're going to take this skillet and we're just going to get it all over this pan. It's funny how just a little bit of oil can cover a whole pan. And look at that. Now, we're going to add just a little bit of butter. About a half a tablespoon of butter too. Okay. Now, we're going to turn our skillet on medium, high, or medium. You don't want a medium low starting off. You can lower it once you get the onions to start seeing them brown. So, once I get this pan nice and hot and ready to roll, we're going to saute these onions. So just give me 1 second. Now that my pan is hot and ready, we can first put in our garlic, which I'm going to put a half a tablespoon. Once you hear that sizzle, you know that you're hot and smoking. Next, we're going to throw in our onions. We're going to cook these until it gets nice and brown and caramelized. And this you don't have to keep moving around, you can kind of give it a nice little stir like I'm doing. And basically, just let them cook, baby. And I like to give these about 5 to 8 minutes. Just depends. You want a nice tender onion. So once you start seeing that brown caramelization, you know you're almost there. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, our onions are caramelizing, sweating down to a brown color. We're going to leave these on for a few more minutes, and then we're going to set these to the side. Now that we have our sauteed onions, we put those to the side along with our bacon. Now it's time for the fun part. Let's get our ground beef rolling. Alright, now ladies and gentlemen, now that we have our onions finished and our bacon done, now it's time for the fun part, and it's time to get our ground beef rolling. Now, right here, we have our ground beef, nice and fresh. We're gonna cook off our ground beef. We're gonna add our onions in. I'm gonna add a little bit of bacon in, and I'm gonna put some on top for our finished dish. So let's get started with our ground beef, baby. Now that we have our ground beef in our pan going, we're going to strain our ground beef with this strainer right here. You know why, ladies and gentlemen? Because if you don't, you're going to have greasy tacos. Now, I've seen videos where people don't strain their meat, but that's kind of odd to me. So, I like to strain my meat. That way you don't have any grease. You bite straight into the meat, and it's nice and tender and juicy and flavorful. So, we're going to let this cook down. I have my spoon right here. And after this turns brownish, and after it cooks down real good, you'll see the grease on the bottom, and we're gonna strain it. Then we're gonna add our onions and a little bit of bacon and our seasonings. Yeah, let's go. Now that our ground beef is cooking down nice, and you see all the grease in the bottom, we're gonna strain that out in just a few more minutes. Once we do that, we're gonna bring it back to the pan, and then we're gonna add our onions and our seasoning and our bacon. Now that we're cooking our ground beef and it's almost finished, we're going to take this strainer right here. We're going to take it to the sink and we're going to strain it out. Once we do that, we're going to add our onions and, of course, our bacon that's sitting over there. After we do that, we're going to add our seasoning. Taste it. You want to judge your seasoning. So I'm going to add just a tablespoon of seasoning at a time and make sure that it's nice and tasty and not salty. You got me? Okay, so see you in a second. This is a good example of how to strain your meat. So yes, you want to put the ground beef in the strainer and run hot water over it until the grease is all the way out. There you have it. Once strained, your meat should look just like this with no grease on the bottom. Now you can add your onions, seasonings, and whatever else you like. Okay, now that we have put our ground beef back in the pan and you hear that sizzle, we can add our sauteed onions. And so the ground beef won't stick to your pan and you won't it won't overcook. I add a little bit of water to mine, and we're gonna add a little bit of water and some salsa in just a minute. So I add my onions. I'm gonna stir this in, and you don't want your heat up too high either. Okay, turn mine down just a tad. Then what I'm gonna do next is add my taco seasoning. I'm gonna add all of that. Mix that all in. Okay. I'm gonna also add in my seasonings that I put together, which would be just a little bit of salt, pepper, parsley, a little bit of onion powder, and that's about it. I'm gonna mix this seasoning in real good. That's why I keep stirring. All in there. And it's best to use a spatula. That way you can get all that seasoning in there. I'm gonna add this water in just a minute. Next, I'm gonna add in my water. It's gonna get it nice and moist. Okay. See how that's coming along? It's looking good. Next thing I'm gonna do is add some of my salsa. All that in there. Okay. And you don't have to add salsa. It's something I like to do. Gives it more flavor to the meat. And I put some on top of my tacos too. Next thing we're gonna do is add our bacon. I'm gonna mix this in. And I usually don't use bacon, but I wanted to try something different today. It's looking very good. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in a tablespoon of my seasoning. Okay. I'm gonna mix that in. And I'm gonna give it a little taste test. Let's see. Look. I think I'm gonna add just a little more seasoning. And we got some good ground beef going. See you in a minute. Now that we have our ground beef nice and seasoned, we're gonna let this simmer down a little bit, and then we'll be ready to pull it off. Yep. Now that our ground beef is done and ready to go and simmering, we can work on our cheese sauce. Let's get it. Now that we have our meat going and it's simmering, we're gonna make a cheese sauce for our stacked tacos. Okay, now we have a Velveeta cheese and we have shredded cheese. What I'm gonna do first is you have the option between water and milk. I'm gonna use milk today because I like it better with my cheese. You can also use water, either or. Either option is up to you. So I'm gonna cut this and I'm gonna go ahead and sit it in my pot before I warm it up. That way while it's warming up, it's already in there. I'm just gonna squeeze that in just like that. Okay, now that we got that in there, I'm gonna add my shredded cheese. Okay, we're gonna let this melt down on low to medium heat, and then after we do that, we're gonna let it cook down for just about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're gonna add it to our flour tortillas into our hard tacos, and we're gonna fill these bad boys up, and then we're ready to eat. We're gonna plate up and we're gonna eat. Let's do it. As you can see, the cheese is melting down nicely. I'm giving it a nice stir with my whisk, and we're gonna take this off in just another 2 minutes. And we're gonna layer this with the flour tortillas around the hard shells. And we're gonna be ready to plate here in a minute. Let's get it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have completed our ground beef, looks lovely, with our bacon and onions, we have our melted cheese, which looks absolutely great. We have our flour tortillas. We also have our queso cheese, squirt cheese, lettuce, tomato, fresh jalapenos, chopped fresh bacon, green onions for garnish, and sour cream. And there goes our hard shell tacos. Now, I like to put my hard shell tacos in the oven and let them warm up for a little while. Also, my flour tortillas too. So that's what I'm gonna do next. After I do that, I'm gonna plate up. Okay, ladies and gents, I'm gonna take these 2 taco shells and stick them in the oven for 1 minute. Literally, it'll be nice and hot. After I do that, I'm gonna demonstrate how to do the stacked taco. Bow. Now that our shells are nice and warm and our flour shells are nice and warm, we're gonna take our cheese and we're gonna layer this cheese on this tortilla just like this, all the way around, like you're saucing a pizza. Just a tad more. Oh yeah, baby. Let's do the next one. Okay, this is nice and fun. Now, I'm gonna take one of our shells, stick it right in the middle, and just lift up, just like that. Beautiful. This, my friend, is a stacked taco. Now we're gonna fill it with the rest of our ingredients and plate up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our final product. We have our stacked tacos. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Robert Q's Hunger Spot. Today we did stat tacos. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm going to enjoy my tacos now and come back for the next episode. Thanks for the support, and I got plenty more videos coming. Peace and one love.